In the spirit of respect, authenticity, and reconciliation, the town of Slave Lake honors and acknowledges that we are situated on the traditional lands of Sawridge First Nation within Treaty 8 territory, home to Indigenous, Métis, and Inuit peoples who have occupied these lands since time immemorial. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Councillor Moallem.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
There is a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call to question those in favor. And that is carried. You have minutes of previous meetings. Councillor Adams.
Motion to accept the committee of the whole September 12th, 2023 minutes as presented.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call to question those in favor. And that is carried. Okay, on to reports and new business. Darcy, you're up first.
Good evening.
Hi.
I'm just presenting tonight the fall external FCSS grants. They closed August 31st and we received 3 grant applications. One of the applications for the Northwest Central FASD is not eligible as it's a PCAP program, which is funded nationally through the feds and also provincially through the provincial government. So it doesn't qualify for our funding. The other 2 that do qualify is the Children's Resource Council for their teen program. We did fund this last year and it was really successful and they'd like to continue on with it. They're actually asking for half of what they asked for last year. So they're starting to sustain it themselves. And then also the Art in the Park. We funded that one last year as well. And they again have asked for half of what they asked for last year. So they're starting to sustain themselves. So that's the goal of the external grants, is that we help them out to start and then they start to see some self-sustaining, and it looks like that's where we're headed. So I would like to recommend that we fund the High Prairie Children's Resource Council teen program for $3,370.40 and the Lesser Slave Regional Arts Council Art in the Park for $1,150.
Okay, Councillor Hughes.
For the teen program there, is that going to be held in Slave Lake? Do you know?
At the Legacy Center.
It's at the Legacy
Yeah,
Center?
actually, they did some at the Legacy last year, but they try to host them at the MRC and we provide them with the free space upstairs because it's more central for the teens to get to after school.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I just wondered if it was actually going to be hosted in our community, and
100%,
if
yeah.
it is, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Moallem.
How many teens attended the event?
Last year, they did 8 weeks and they had 6 for the most part.
Mhm.
And then it got up to 10 at the end. So they started to gain some steam at the end. My daughter participated in all of them. She said they were fantastic. So I ran teen programs and Christine ran them through the CRC. She participated in the CRC ones and didn't like mine. So they seem to be pretty good. Mostly it was attended by grade 7 and 8s last year. And so far registered this year is those grade 8s, grade 7s again.
Councillor Adams.
I move that council approves $4,485.40 in external community grant FCSS funds for fall 2023 as follows. High Prairie and District Children's Resource Council teen program, $3,370.40. Lesser Slave Regional Arts Council Art in the Park, $1,115 for a total of $4,485.40.
Okay, motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call to question those in favor. And that is carried.
So that does leave 27,400 remaining for the year. So I am going to open up the grants again and close them November. just to
Okay, so
see-
you're gonna do one more last minute session for that.
Just to see if we can get anything in.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Maybe we can put it out to, isn't there an interagency with all the nonprofits? Maybe we can put that out through the communication channels that there's one more last minute round before the end of the year.
Yep.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Darcy.
Alex, you're up next.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So the report presented tonight is to discuss the potential of a speed limit reduction on a section of Main Street and also to look at the school zone and the crosswalks that are in that area. So essentially the portion of Main Street that's in question is from the train tracks to Caribou Trail, 1A Avenue northeast to, sorry, 1A Avenue northeast to Caribou Trail. So currently it's 50 kilometers an hour. The question before us was looking at change it to 40 kilometers an hour. During school days, it already is reduced from, let's say, the Legion to 6th Avenue. It's 4th Avenue Northwest to 6th Avenue, becomes 30 kilometers an hour. So essentially, if approved, we would be looking at 3-speed changes within about a 1.1 kilometer stretch of Main Street. The other concern that was looked at was the crosswalk. There's 2 crosswalks. It's an offset intersection. So 4th Avenue Northwest and 4th Avenue Northeast are kind of offset. They both have marked crosswalks. The one at 4th Avenue Northwest has an overhead light that flashes when it's activated. The one at 4th Avenue Northwest has 2 flashing lights on the side of the street. There's lots of students that use the one at the south of the Legion, the 4th Avenue Northeast one with the 2 flashing lights. But the school zone ends at the one at 4th Avenue Northwest. So one of the concerns was, is there potential to look at moving the school zone to 4th Avenue Northeast, or is it good where it is? We spoke to the RCMP and the peace officers. Speed on that stretch of road isn't
Just, you've got your directions mixed up.
oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah,
Just
you're right.
flip those.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Northwest is the Legion side. I apologize. So we did reach out to the RCMP and the peace officers. Speed in that section isn't of major concern. It is quite congested with the vehicles that are there. The fire department doesn't have a lot of incidents in that stretch for MVCs, motor vehicle collisions, in recent history. So most of the concern centers around pedestrian traffic at the end and the beginning of school days. And that stretch of having 3 different speed zone changes or reductions within that 1 kilometer stretch from the train tracks to Caribou Trail. So one of the things we looked at was changing to 40 kilometers an hour in that stretch, moving the school zone, or potentially not making any changes along that stretch of Main Street, north of the tracks to Caribou Trail.
Counselor Gremley?
There's like discussion and options. Do you have a recommendation?
Don't.
You don't?
I feel that no change would be the most acceptable. Based on the information we gathered, the photo radar that does a lot of work there tracks the speeds, and the average speed is 43 kilometers an hour. Now, that being said, when it's 30 kilometers, obviously that's a concern. But they do photo radar outside of school zones as well. So that would be under the 50 kilometers posted speed limit. When those, so they do track both school zones and non-school zone hours when they work there. The amount of collisions isn't a major concern, so it's more of the pedestrian traffic and funneling them to the right place, I guess.
Counselor Adams?
A few questions, I guess. You did note the 43 kilometer an hour average, but since it's through ATA, where are we pulling those stats from? Is that from the mobile unit? Or is it from one that's on the light poles, or?
From the mobile unit, they give us they track the stats on the mobile units only that we get every month.
Okay, then those ones, I thought they didn't land outside the 30 zone.
They do some work in the summertime there when it's not a school zone. So it's most of the time it is tracked during its school hours during the day, but they do some work outside, and that's why the average is probably a little higher than if it was just a school zone.
Couple concerns I have on this one is congestion in the area. The fact that the school zone does end at 4th Ave Northeast, which frustrates me that it's been like that for so long. I know we haven't had any incidents that have jumped out at us, but I mean, when we look at when we've made our decisions in the past, we got the crosswalk lights put up on the Northern Lakes College because someone got killed there and got hit. We put up a 3-way stop at the tags in the southeast because someone got hit. So we've seen a little bit behind. I'd rather do it before than after.
So they are both marked
But
crosswalks. They are both.
I understand
They
that
do
we
have
have the one that's marked and we got the one that flashes, and we also have about 300 kids that cross there in a day at once.
They
It's a
both have
little crazy.
flashing. They both have flashing devices.
Yeah, we have one overhead and we have
Yeah.
one set that's just the flashing ones, partially behind parked vehicles as well. And we have vehicles parking in and out. I understand it is a pain to have the 40 kilometer an hour speed limit through that zone, but anyone driving down there in the middle of the day doing 50, that's ridiculous anyways, even if it was not a school day. But the very least I'd like to see us do is extend that 30-kilometer zone at least so it's covering the Legion. I know they didn't do it in the past simply because of you're not allowed to have a bar in a school zone, but I think that's nuts. I'd rather have the school zone and the bars there. Who cares? But that's my two bits on the
The
situation.
bar's grandfathered in, we changed the speed.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah, that's what exactly.
Counselor Hughes.
So my thoughts on this are, I think having too many posted, like, I don't want to cause more confusion than we already have with kind of our new, speed limit zones and things like that in town already. I'm more open to option 2, though, I would say, and just kind of hopefully moving that a little bit more south to sort of extend that school zone. Seeing that I work in that area, I do notice the amount of kids that are crossing Main Street, and I do share Councillor Adams' concerns with that. But I also want to be careful that we aren't doing mixed messages and having too many speed signs, because I also feel like that's just distracting residents and they don't understand, you're like, oh, how fast am I supposed to go here, right? So I think that's maybe more of a happy medium for me. Thoughts?
I agree with Councillor Hughes as well. I think just moving that school zone, whether it's right now it's on the north side of Fourth Avenue, just moving to the south side makes the most sense onto the kind of the service corner.
Yeah, onto
Yeah,
the,
just on, just moving it on there and just extending a few feet. I think that kind of keeps everything kind of the same but just gives us that safety on that one busy corner.
Counselor Adams.
This area is the highest congested area in Slave Lake for crosswalks. We have 13 crosswalks from 1A to 4th Ave Northeast. It's crazy. And to allow 50 kilometers an hour across that, I still think it's crazy. Putting the 30-kilometer an hour zone over, yes, I'll be happy with that. I think the 30, if we're going to do just the 30 zone, I think it should even be pushed further down. But because people are coming up at 50 kilometers an hour into that congested zone already. I would rather see 40, and honestly, my opinion is if it's too confusing, I'd rather just make the entire town 40 and be done. And then it's not confusing anymore. But that being said, I understand there's opposition to that, but
Counselor Grunlick.
Yeah, like you had mentioned, Councillor Adams, it's pretty hard to go 50 in there. So if it was 40 from the train tracks on, it's not a real game changer, and this still stays 50, and it is a little easier to go 50 there without schools and parking and stores. So I could play in that realm of adjusting it to 40 there. It doesn't hurt my feelings, and no one's really going 50 anyway, I don't think. Question mark.
Did administration have something?
Turned your mic on. We thought you wanted to play in this
So-
game.
I'm just always
ready.
What you guys are proposing essentially then is the 40 kilometers just north of the train tracks all the way up until you hit the school zone where it regularly is. Is that correct? Is that what you're?
well, it'd be 40 kilometers right from 1A Ave Northeast all the way to, well, either Caribou or 6th Ave. I don't care which. And then 30-kilometer zone would go in and out as normal. But
Okay.
you're saying that would cause more problems than not,
you're having 3 speed changes within a kilometer.
I don't.
Is
love
Yeah.
the
that.
essential.
And then
and 40 all the way to Caribou then. Then it's one speed change.
Counselor Grunlick.
You still have them within a kilometer. You still have 3 change zones. It's from the train tracks to the Caribou Trails, just over a kilometer. So you're still having 3 speed zone changes within that
That'd
kilometer,
be a 40 and a 30. That's it.
50 to 40. Well, you're going 50 to the train tracks.
Yeah.
40 to the school zone, and then on school days you go 30.
But this, I mean, we have 2 now, so what's the 2 and 3?
it is kind of a good transition to go from 50 to 40 to 30 rather than from 50 to 30, right? I mean, it does work.
I don't know. I just want to do what's right. I'm worried. I don't want to be sitting here in a year going, well, yeah, well, that kid got killed. So now what do we do? We should put that to 40.
You don't want to react, you want to be proactive. I get it.
And I know you're saying there's multiple speed zone changes. I do have a challenge though with being allowed to go that speed in there. And I understand other councillors would argue that police can give tickets if you're driving unsafe and even though the speed limit's 50. And if you feel it's not, but I have seen so many close calls with cars backing up, vehicles coming around, trying to get out from Fourth Ave Northeast even onto Main Street and make a left is crazy. Everybody knows that. There's so many different aspects to this that I find aren't great. And we're supposed to be in the downtown core, focused on pedestrians, encouraging pedestrians. That's better for business. That's better for safety. There's so many pluses in this. I mean, you look at downtown Edmonton is 40 kilometers an hour. And does that need to be? Probably not. But it's the way that things are going. You look at winter when we're having these dangerous road conditions. Now, granted, we get on these pretty quick now, but they still turn icy. It's a lot longer to stop doing 50 than it is to stop doing 40. Yeah.
No, you don't have to stop. I initially was on the extend the school zone train just for simplicity's sake. But your arguments may have changed my mind here on this. I know it might be, it might be a first. I am not for one of making it more complicated, but when we're looking at what's correct and what's right and what speed our main street should be, when you're looking at increasing the walkability of our town, increasing foot traffic down there, having more events with Reneal Plaza and the downtown plan and all that updated, plus adding in the school, that's a lot going on there. Yeah, that's a tough one. I don't want to increase complexity, but I think 40, like option 1, would probably be the correct route. Councillor Adams.
I'm gonna kind of make a motion. I'm gonna make a motion, but I'm gonna change it a little bit. I like to see.
Microphone, sorry. Your
Your
microphone.
mic.
Thank you. Usually I talk loud enough.
That was dramatic.
I'd like to make a motion to change the posted speed limit from 50 kilometers an hour to 40 kilometers an hour on Main Street, 1A Avenue Northeast to Caribou Trail intersection from 50 kilometers to 40 kilometers. I would also like to have the school zone extended from where it is currently to Fourth Ave Northwest.
It's a combined motion.
Yeah, do you need two or? Oh, that's good. One's good.
Yeah, and then I would add a friendly amendment to add at the end of that and for administration to bring back the changes in a bylaw.
That's what I said. Perfect.
All right, so this will just come back through a bylaw that where we can proceed through the 3 readings.
Correct.
So there's a motion on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Call the question. Oh, Councillor Hughes.
Further discussion. Okay, so I think you've swayed me as well, Councillor Adams. However, I do have a question. How are we going to properly inform the community of our intentions here? Like, is there some sort of other strategy that we could come up with to kind of convey, you know, the reasoning behind this with the school zone? Like, I'm just concerned about so many changes coming down Main Street like that. I'd like to see, you know, does administration have good ideas for us on how we can kind of get the really clear messaging out about this if we're going to do this?
We'd have to come up with a strategy, I think, to make it work for the reasons behind it.
Okay.
Yeah, I would love to tell you that there's going to be something special and fantastic that's going to communicate this any more than others. But I mean, I think a combination of if the bylaw was to pass, you know, the changes that are in effect, obviously with signage changing and, you know, hopefully some good coverage and commentary by our local newspaper might help assist with getting that message out and the reasoning behind it. So.
Okay, maybe the electronic signs, kind of the whole full deal if it passes.
We will try whatever we need to do.
Buoyant.
Okay, thank you.
It still comes forth through the
Yeah.
bylaw that
Right.
needs to be passed.
Just thinking ahead.
Fair enough. Any further discussion?
I think combining option 1 and 2 together kind of makes sense. It is I think when Steve said you're able to go 50 or giving people the right to go 50 from into downtown, when I don't think anyone really goes 50, but you're kind of engaging that or you're allowing it. So I think doing the 40 speed limit kind of makes sense leading into the school zone. So
Call to question those in favor. And that is carried. Thank you, Alex.
Thanks, Alex. What your spot in the agenda? Yeah, I don't know what you're supposed to look for.
All right, Jason.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council. The purpose of this report is to provide an update on the Economic Development Action Plan developed in Q4 2022, and for Council to identify priorities for the Economic Development Department moving forward. The Economic Development Action Plan supports all 5 areas of focus under the Economic Health Strategic Priority and Council's Strategic Plan. A little bit of background about the plan. The plan was developed by Insight, a consultant based out of Edmonton in late 2022. The action plan informs and guides the work plans and scope for the Economic Development Department. The action plan identifies four key economic development pillars with priorities and objectives nested underneath. The pillars identified include Slave Lake economic development, which is essentially increasing capacity, business investment and labor attraction, strengthen and support local business, and tourism. So a full update presentation is appended to this report. I'll direct council to that presentation now. And I'll go through a summary of the action plan and kind of an update. There is a lot of information here and I'm going to go through it relatively quickly. So please stop me at any time if you want to dig down. So the first slide, you have your 4 pillars I just mentioned at the top in orange and the associated priorities in green underneath. So under the Slave Lake economic development pillar, we have the following priorities. Complete a rebrand by creating and launching a new visual identity, which was completed in 2022. Increase capacity for execution of action plan and delivery for Slave Lake economic development services. And share regional positioning and economic development goals, results, and impacts with the community. Priorities under the business investment and labor attraction pillar provide access to resources and information essential for business and investment decision making. Develop incentive programs to attract prospective businesses and investment. Define and deliver a high-touch service experience to assist businesses and investors seeking to enter the region. Priorities under the strengthen and support local business pillar are engage key regional stakeholders to better understand local market challenges and concerns. And educate local businesses and community on Slave Lake economic development initiatives and drive increased collaboration and communication. Under the tourism pillar, which you'll see has the most priorities, develop and launch a summer in-marketplace brand and tourism campaign for the region. Create foundational elements to promote regional visitation. Educate key stakeholders to champion tourism in the region. Develop the resources and tools necessary to support local entrepreneurship as it relates to the development of a sustainable year-round tourism product. Deliver excellent frontline visitor service experiences. There's also a future consideration priority, and there's just some objectives under that have been sidelined for now, but could come again in the future. Yes, Councilor Llewellyn.
thanks, Jason, for putting this together. I think it's great. But what I see on this page is what I'd like to see in it, not that you're ranking number 1, 2, 3, and 4, but I'd like to see strengthen and support local business, maybe change places with that business investment and labor attraction. I think it looks a little bit better and it looks like we're kind of prioritizing who's already here.
Okay.
So
these pillars aren't really prioritized in any form, but yeah. Yeah, okay, understood. Okay, so next slide. So this is where we're going to get into the detail. So you'll see the priority listed on the far left column. We've already gone through those. And then directly to the right are the individual objectives that I'm working on. And then you'll see an update and a status as well. So I'll go through these relatively quickly. Once again, if you want to dig into any, please just stop me. So new visual identity for the town of Slave Lake. The objective was to update the town's identity and align with the region's new positioning and brand experience outlined in the brand strategy. As previously mentioned, the new visual identity and brand guidelines have been approved by the town in the fall of 2022. The town has implemented the new brand with various templates developed to ensure consistency in external and internal communications. So I consider that objective completed. Hire economic development officer, that is pretty much self-explanatory. I am sitting here today. The town hired me in the fall of 2022 and has given me the mandate of spending approximately 75% of my time on economic development and 25% of my time on communications. So I consider that objective completed. State of the region event. So this is State of the Lake. Leverage interest shown during research to engage with the region in a way that brings together key stakeholders and elected officials to collaborate, communicate, and share economic development results. We held our first State of the Lake in April of this year. That should be 2023, sorry. We had approximately 55 to 60 attendees. Feedback from the event was overall very positive. The recommendation from participants was to have a greater tourism component at future events, which is in the plan for 2024. So that objective is ongoing. Impact one pager. I would consider this one of my priorities moving forward. The objective is to bolster regional pride by showcasing the impacts that are making the region a better place to visit, work, and live. So we're looking to create a series of one-pagers based on specific audience types. So one has already been created, actually. One is for developers. And so we developed a kind of an attraction toolkit when Landrex came to town, and we gave them a tour. So that's kind of the focus we're looking on. But we want to create one for potential business owners, tourists, newcomers, any other folks you can think of. But we want to create a series of those one pages based on specific audience types. So I consider that partially completed. Customer service video. This could be a potential priority for summer 2024 in the tourism marketing campaign. I believe it was last month or a month before the idea of a tourism video came up. And so there will be a budget ask in the budget 2024 to complete that work. And this is an excellent collaboration opportunity with the Slave Lake Tourism Society. So I consider that objective not completed. Okay, so that was our first pillar. That was Slave Lake Economic Development. And once again, that pillar is kind of all geared towards building capacity within the department itself. The next pillar is business investment and labor attraction. So the first objective was the sector profiles. I consider that very similar to the Impact One pagers. Once again, these are just very simple documents that highlight the great aspects of our community, but once again, they'll be tailored for a specific audience. Gather, update, and publish data in a centralized location. A business and investment statistics section was added to our website in 2022. That is called Local Intel. It's a subscription-based service. They draw all their data from StatsCan, and it gets regularly updated. So as soon as StatsCan produces new data, it gets automatically uploaded, and it has the basic demographic information, real estate information, market statistics, all the general StatsCan data that you can obtain. So that's essentially ongoing. Inventory of public and private land. PDF maps have been created by the planning department. However, we may need to update those maps and put them on the website. Those maps are also part of the development investor package that I mentioned earlier. Formalize and promote a business licensing process. We have already an existing business licensing process, but as we move forward with our ERP, that has been specifically highlighted as an area of focus to see if we can streamline our business license process through the ERP in any way by digitizing. Incentive layers to identify and implement incentives for businesses. Slave Lake Economic Development would like to attract to the region. So the recent passing of the non-residential tax law bylaw made it through all three readings of council in August. Communication around the details of this new bylaw are still to be completed. And we'll continue to look for additional incentives to leverage. I'm essentially waiting for the next District of Commerce meeting to happen. And I want to do a great unveiling there. And then it'll also be presented to my Economic Development Advisory Committee, which is meeting sometime in October. We were hoping to meet in September, but folks just aren't available because it's a busy time of year. Continuing on with business investment and labor attraction. So an investor touchpoint analysis, integrate a streamlined and high-touch business development process for prospective regional investors. So this is once again is closely linked to the website redesign and the local intel that I mentioned earlier. And I need to confirm with the Chamber, Community Futures, and EDAC whether we are presenting the right information on the site. Because like I said, all the information we're presenting now is publicly available through StatsCan. So I'm just interested to see if anyone has any other ideas of what would be useful for prospective businesses and investors. Retail and service market analysis, create a deliberate business and investment and attraction plan based on filling gaps in the market. Once again, this business attraction plan would include those Impact One pagers, our local intel on the website, our non-residential tax incentive bylaw, And then a question for council, are there additional incentives that you would like us to explore? So essentially, we would have these individual resources and then we would bring them all together in one toolkit. Top 20 retail and service lists, prioritize and target prospective businesses and investors. So our business activity survey kind of informs this kind of work as to what kind of businesses we should be looking to attract to our region. So we heard quite clearly that tourism operators is a big one, as well as restaurants and clothing retailers for kids. Explore the implementation of the transportation survey recommendations. So I don't know if council recalls, but we conducted a major transportation survey back in 2021. And I'll just review the major conclusions of that report. So number one was Slave Lake sits in the center of a major regional trucking route where goods to and from Northern Alberta flow through. Slave Lake serves as the primary food and fueling location in the region, but the town could be more popular by constructing more restaurants and gas stations. Investing the viability of building a new truck stop with washrooms, showers, a convenience store, a restaurant, and possible mechanic shop for heavy trucks along Highway 2 is recommended. And Slave Lake is in the epicenter of goods flowing through Northern Alberta and the town needs to develop more along Highway 2 to capitalize on the potential revenue it can gain from the trucking industry. So the methodology, if I remember correctly, the methodology of that transportation survey is they actually kind of set up almost like checkpoints as right by the way station, and they were stopping truckers as they were going through and just asking them basic questions: where are you from, where are you going, what are you transporting? And so those were the major recommendations of that. And I consider that objective not completed. Okay, strengthen and support local business. So the first objective is to host a business advisory council. That's my economic development advisory council. So that's been completed. We've hosted 2 meetings to date, and we have a total of 8 members, including myself, the chair. And we look to meet on a quarterly basis. And I also attend the Chamber of Commerce quarterly meetings to provide updates when requested. Another objective is provincial and federal advocacy. Harness stakeholder collaboration to advocate for regional needs to provincial and federal governments. There is a clear example of that in the room today. So that objective is ongoing. Ongoing meetings with Indigenous groups, increase regional collaboration and identify opportunities for potential partnership. We have partnered with the Sawridge First Nation on the rural renewal stream. They did approach me and asked to be part of the program. And we'll be looking to partner with the Sawridge First Nation for the 125-year anniversary of Treaty 8 next year. As previously mentioned, I was an elder from the Sawridge First Nation reached out to me and is interested in collaborating on that event. Visitation program, increase engagement with local businesses to strengthen relationships, build trust in the town's efforts and inform decisions. Engagement efforts with local businesses will be primarily driven through the advisory committee, the State of the Lake, and the attendance Chamber of Commerce meetings and events. That being said, if any business owner in town gives me a call and wants to meet, I will absolutely go out and meet with them. Training research to further explore gaps related to training within local businesses triggered by initial research findings. I think Northern Lakes College does a pretty good job of this. They're constantly looking to ensure that their program offerings align with the needs of the local and regional business and industry community. So I would consider that not particularly a SLED action item, but I will support them in any way I can. Besides identifying trends and training needs as they become apparent. All right, tourism, the one with the most objectives. So the first objective was to develop a digital tourism campaign concept. So Truly Creative Marketing developed and managed a summer 2023 tourism digital marketing campaign with results suggesting stronger performance compared to the 2022 Heck Yeah campaign. I haven't heard an update from Truly Creative on when I'm going to be receiving those results, but Shanna says it should be soon. Digital campaign collateral and implementation tools. So need to continue building our photo and video database so that we can create fresh ads for every campaign. Visit slavelake.ca underwent a complete overhaul this year, which will make supplement campaigns easier to execute. I did attend a Tourism Society board meeting last week, and I'm happy to report that they instituted their own photo contest and they had over 100 entries. And they agreed to share those photos with the town of Slave Lake, and all those participants signed a waiver to say they do so. So the Tourism Society is also helping out with building that photo database. Editorial coverage to build interest in the idea of weekend trips to the Slave Lake region and market through media coverage. This was more of a social media focus and like social media influencers. So there's not too many social media influencers in the region, but there is potential for collaboration with quote unquote influencers for more populated centers like Grand Prairie and Edmonton. Update and maintain the town and regional tourism websites. So like I said, visit slavelake.ca underwent a complete overhaul, and the Slave Lake Tourism Society also did a complete overhaul of their website. So what we did is, based on the excellent work of the Tourism Society, essentially what Visit Slave Lake does is send everyone over to the region website in a very visually appealing way. Source regional high resolution photography and video content. We already talked about that. Formalized partnership with the Slave Lake Tourism Society. So I do attend Tourism Society meetings when time permits, and I have a much better understanding of their goals and objectives. And I do provide support to the society whenever requested. Preseason tourism roundtable. Once again, this is an action item managed by the Tourism Society. They hosted an operators workshop in May of 2023, and they're looking to conduct another one in the first week of October. And I do attend those workshops. There's also a guest speaker from Travel Alberta coming to the October one as well, who may or may not be facilitating. And last page. Tourism product audits to identify gaps in the tourism experience that local operators, businesses, and stakeholders can provide to visitors. The gaps have already somewhat been identified, so the lack of waterfront infrastructure and amenities. We'll look to develop a complete list of operators for the 2024 season. Discussions with the Tourism Society continue on how best to promote those businesses, whether it be through the Tourism and Recreation Guide or some other means. Do you want to speak to that in any way, Councillor Hughes? Or did I summarize it pretty good? Okay. Indigenous tourism product development. The town of Slave Lake is interested in exploring any and all potential partnerships or avenues for collaboration with local Indigenous groups. However, those partnerships should be Indigenous led. So we can't just go to them and demand their participation. They need to come to us, and we will support them in any way we can. Visitor Information Center toolkits. So I would like some way, moving into 2024, if we do enact the Visitor Information Center team, I'd like to find a way to get more data out of them. Even though we only get, as Councillor Adam points out, a few dozen or however it is, folks rolling through there, I'd like to get as much data out of those few folks as humanly possible. So I'm going to be working with the Tourism Society and Community Services to try and come up with a way to get more data out of that. Activate Visitor Information Center team. So we did have returning employees this season, which made it great. They already knew exactly what was going on. And once again, we need to explore more ways to get data out of them. Okay, so this is for future consideration, and this was actually briefly discussed at the Tourism Society meeting the other night. So the reestablishment of a Slave Lake destination marketing organization. So in the tourism realm, there's two acronyms, DMO and DMF. So Designated Marketing Organization and Designated Marketing Fund. Both have been explored in the past. Slave Lake was really close to instituting a destination marketing fund several years ago. There was a soft yes from a lot of the hoteliers on board, but from what I understand, this was before my time. One hotelier refused to cooperate, and as soon as that hotelier refused to cooperate, kind of all the dominoes fell and no one else wanted to participate. So the reinstitution of a DMF and DMO is certainly not dead, but I would consider it a long-term vision, something to be instituted in the next 3 to 5 years, perhaps, if we can prove our worth. As I said to the Tourism Society, we need to come to them. If we are to institute a DMF, we need to come to folks with a value proposition. We need to highlight what they will get out of the DMF and why they should agree. But yeah, it's in the long-term vision. And then establish and promote FAM tours, which are familiarization tours. So the Tourism Society conducted these last year and actually had quite a few participants, because I think a couple of corporate entities jumped on board. This year they were looking to conduct FAM tours in June, but there just wasn't enough interest. So unfortunately, those had to be canceled just simply due to lack of interest. But once again, it's something that could be considered for future years. So thanks for bearing with me. That's it. A couple questions for council. Is there anything missing from this action plan, and what would you like to see prioritized moving forward?
Councilor Moellem.
First, I want to thank you for this report. It is absolutely fantastic. I enjoyed looking at this. The one thing I really did like about this is we're using other partners. The college, you got the tourism society, you got the Chamber of Commerce. You got all sorts of people who we can who have all sorts of information, have a lot of good people who can help us put this whole framework together. I definitely think one of the opportunities that I don't know unless I missed it was to look at like other opportunities for a region such as like geothermal or some other potential economic drivers that we could possibly bring in as well.
Okay.
But it's a great report. Thank you.
Councilor Hughes.
I should have asked questions with each pillar because.
Yeah, sorry, I threw a lot at you.
Try to break them all down, but okay, so thank you. This is very comprehensive. I really like reading through everything that you're working on, especially, of course, with regards to all of your tourism priorities. It's really good to know a few of the other things and kind of be reminded about something like the product audit, for instance, because we kind of are doing the same thing, but maybe in a more informal way than you're conducting it. So it's a good reminder for me that maybe we should actually sit down and touch base a little bit more so that we're not duplicating work in any manner. But yeah, everything that you've got going on there is essentially things that are on our radar as well. So I can't say anything more than that. I'm fairly happy with the direction that that's heading at this point in time. What else was I going to say here? Okay, going back to the other ones. I did write. Oh, so for the visitation program that you had mentioned there for businesses, yeah, you had just mentioned that you would get out and about in the community if you could.
Yeah.
I know personally that's something that I would love to see. I think people would like to see our economic development officer kind of out and about, maybe meeting the businesses a little bit, putting a face to your name. And I also think it would be valuable too in terms of the type of feedback that you're getting. For instance, if we have no feedback from oil and gas and the lumber type of industry, just to kind of have a broad view of where we want to go. I think that could be really important. So that might be something I'd like to see you do. I just wanted to comment on the transportation survey as well. So that was actually something that I volunteered with because I was with the Slave Lake Chamber of Commerce at the time. And all of your major conclusions are definitely correct there as well. One of the main comments that we actually had from the majority of people, though, was the state of the highways. Essentially, that was actually the number one comment that we did have. So I'm just shouting that out while our MLA is in the room again as well. So moving on, one other thing. Oh, the impact one pager. This was from the very beginning. Just let me look here. My note for that. So I was just wondering about, because you have on here. So is this is in a business capacity, right? Your impact one pager?
Yeah, so this is,
Okay.
yeah, so once again, so the one I've developed so far was for developers.
Okay, yeah.
So I showcase basic demographic information, basic real estate market statistics, and then the maps of vacant property. And
Okay.
then also attached to that, thanks to planning and development, are the complete list of associated bylaws as it relates to development, and it comes in one package binded, and I just hand it off.
Okay.
But
got it.
no other packages have been developed, so I'm certainly open to suggestion as to
Okay.
who I should target next.
I'll use an example of something that happened this past summer, or I think it was springtime. So when we ended up hosting that Treaty 8 tournament that we had here in town, we had an influx of people to the community that essentially were not as familiar with the town, right?
Mhm.
And so the feedback that I got from a lot of business owners was, one, they didn't really know what was happening until a lot closer to the event, and they would have ordered more stock, been able to increase their sales, et cetera. So I do feel like we're missing a gap between maybe communicating to the business community in some capacity when we have these large scale events going on, so that they are able to make the most of that opportunity. And two, I would say that I would love to see maybe a one pager that is at the MRC or some of our facilities that does highlight businesses in the area, you know, where to go, things to do, kind of that almost tourism type thing, but it obviously just within the town of Slave Lake kind of boundary, right? So I'm just wondering if there might be some potential there to kind of have like a little guide or a QR code to a page on the website or something. I mean, I leave the choice up to you, but just something that I noticed that I've had a few comments on since we had that specific hockey tournament. So I do feel like there could be opportunity there to improve, maybe collaborate with the Chamber of Commerce as well on something like that, but just a thought for you, so. And I think that's it for me. I probably had more, but I'll let someone else speak.
Counselor Adams.
I'll hop onto your impact one pager piece there as well. What I like what you did with that development one, how that was set up, how it was all compact for the whole thing. And I thought that was a brilliant idea to bring that forward to these developers that can come in there, or even the local ones for that matter might help out. What do you think should be the next step? What, as an economic development officer, what do you feel should be a next step as far as the impact pages?
Let me just look at my list here. Yeah, I would probably, to Councillor Hughes's point, I would try to target the tourists. So one thing I mentioned to the Tourism Society is I kind of wanted to create kind of a community tear map. I know it's pretty old school, but associated with that map would be a QR code. And yeah, and it's so the old school kind of news, coffee shop newsprint type where you just literally tear it off. Like you see at Banff National Park, highlights all of our businesses and with an index at the bottom, and then it'll be color coded with restaurants, retailers, etc. That would be one. And then also what I'm working on now is actually a tournament marketing package. So something that was assigned to me by administration was to come up with almost a promotional package to try and attract more tournaments and major events, knowing that it draws economic activity in the region. So that marketing package would also be a priority for me. So kind of twofold: a tournament and event marketing package, almost advertising package, and then to support new folks coming to town, some sort of community tear business that includes a business directory or some sort of map.
Awesome.
Counselor Moreland.
So you're kind of reading my mind because I was going to jump into this tournament thing because I've lived here all my life. Maybe it's because I see it more often now that I have kids in sports, but Slave Lake was never this busy. And I think this is something we could definitely take to our hotels and get them to sign up for the DMF. Yeah. Because I remember it wasn't that long ago where the summers had, empty parking lots in front of all those hotels. And then now it's and even some weekends during the winter. Whereas now it's busy all the time. We've got, tournaments in the summer. We've got tournaments in the winter. We've got like the Treaty 8, where it's bringing an influx of people on any given weekend. I mean, there's something going on here all the time. And I think that's what hotels want us to do. We're helping them. So it just kind of makes sense that they kind of help us as well.
Counselor Graham.
Last week we were in Whitefish and actually Chief Thunder expressed the gratitude for the town of Slave Lake for taking on, I guess all we did was rent a facility to Treaty 8, but they're very thankful that we did. So I'm interested in the tournament event aspect too. Is that something where you're looking to attract people to have it here, or something that maybe admin would look into hosting some sort of tournaments or events throughout the year? I don't mean anytime soon, but do we have the capacity to start hosting some baseball tournaments, hockey tournaments, stuff like that?
Well, I mean, typically it's not so much admin or the town hosting the events, but providing the information and encouraging, other local organizations or sporting teams or clubs to potentially host or have those, that information. So it's not so much of an administration taking on that task, but supporting those and encouraging those, to potentially apply to host provincials or to apply for this tournament or to actively go out and look or help support and promote those things.
Would there be an appetite for admin and be a council decision, but to follow up on that on things like Arctic Winter Games, Alberta Summer Games, all these things that the town has been a part of many, many years ago, but we have the infrastructure now and the things to do it. And I know that we may not have just bought a whole bunch of cots that would meet the need for some of the athletes in that. So would that be something that?
And we have, and administration has has explored some of those opportunities and some of those larger sort of scale events. Typically, what's getting us out of them though is there's usually requirements, specific requirements regarding number of facilities and like, especially when you're talking about winter games or Arctic games or whatever the case may be, that sometimes we don't qualify because we just don't have enough infrastructure to support those events. But it is something that I can tell you, we've had discussions with administration and are there opportunities for us potentially to attempt to organize or host or support or whatever the case may be, some of those bigger events, but most cases we wouldn't qualify because we don't have the necessary infrastructure to support.
We're missing a ski hill.
We're missing a ski hill or we're missing something,
We have a
right?
partnership with High Prairie. They got ski
So-
hill close.
I was gonna comment just to kind of continue with that sports thing as far as economic development initiatives. It might be helpful to actually reach out to some of these organizing bodies that do softball tournaments, that do slow pitch and baseball and hockey and soccer, and say, hey, we're a great place to host these things. A lot of times it's generated from the teams that we actually have here, but I think there's a bit of a proactive approach to that, because I think sports tourism is probably one of the faster ways to get, because to be honest, not a lot of people are going to come here currently unless there's a specific event or a reason to, and kids sports and young adult sports seems to be a great reason to haul yourself up here. So I think it would be great to say, hey, you know, we do have capacity with restaurants and hotels and facilities. So if you need to host an out of town tournament,
And we are focusing on that. I mean, the problem though with us, let's say approaching softball Alberta is it's a bid sort of process. And usually there's a significant volunteer component that's required for those bid processes, right? So although we recognize the same opportunity, our approach is going to be more kind of focusing on the clubs that obviously the ones that are going to have to do the lion's share of the work, right? We wouldn't necessarily be able to put a bid package in as a town without necessarily having that support, but we would be able to support Slave Lake Minor Ball in providing multiple applications.
and I think
right?
the way I was going was less of necessarily bid packages, but for instance, just making, I don't know how you make these organizations aware that we're able to host it, but when AB Taekwondo hosted their tournament here, they had 200 participants plus their family members. And that was their first year and that was in-house again. But I think there are options that may not necessarily be big, just throwing it out there that, hey.
I mean, we can reach out to the governing bodies and pass out the information.
I think that's more so what I'm saying here. It's
Yeah.
not necessarily that we need to bid and have this huge volunteer component for things like that we don't have a ski hill for. But to me, it would make sense to reach out to some of these governing bodies. Even things like, I'm shocked that we don't have a dance festival here because we have the Legacy Center. So, and those are hosted by various dance organizations, not our studios that are in town, but something like that. We do have to have capacity for.
I agree. Yeah, just one more.
Councillor Hughes.
Jason, so you kind of have completed or partially completed, like your list is narrowing. So just curious where to go from here, looking into 2024. Are you looking for more guidance with, future objectives? Are you coming up with those, as you go here as well, or?
As kind of building on this plan?
Yeah.
I haven't got to that point yet. I'm still knocking
Okay.
off each
Still
part of the
focusing on
plan.
what's
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I guess Councillor Ramlik.
Make a motion to accept the report as information.
Any further discussion? Call the question, those in favor? And that is carried. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Moving into question period. Do we have any questions for CAO and administration?
Not today.
Okay, quiet night for question period. We'll move forth to correspondence.
All right, so what you have before you is a letter we've received for Region 5 Métis Nation. And I can read it out loud for you if you haven't had a chance to read it.
Sure.
As you're aware, October 4th marks the day of recognition for the missing and murdered Indigenous women in Canada and around the world. Region 5 Métis Nation Alberta is planning to host our second annual walk and candlelight vigil to honor the lives of the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and to show support to love for their loved ones and educate the public on this national tragedy. We are planning an event in the downtown area. There will be a public march and candlelight vigil. We wish to start the walk at the town hall and walk to Rennie Hall Plaza, where we will all observe a moment of silence and have a candlelight vigil. Following this, we will have a small social gathering of tea, coffee, and dainties at the Royal Canadian Legion. My request on behalf of the committee to yourself and your council is the permission to host the event. In addition to this, should the event be approved, we wish to formally extend an invitation to you to attend and bring some welcoming remarks. Thank you in advance for considering our request.
Fantastic. Ashley, if you can respond back and I am available to make opening remarks. I think this is a great opportunity for the Métis Nation to host this in our community, and I would gladly support them hosting this.
Absolutely agree.
Okay, do we need a motion?
We need a motion.
Just to receive for information, and I think we can handle that request.
Motion to receive his information.
Call the question, those in favor. And that is carried. Okay, State of the Lake, counselors, anything? Ken, do you have something?
Nope.
Okay,
Just,
perfect.
our trip.
A couple of things. So, last week, our council was fortunate enough to be invited by Whitefish First Nation from the chief and council to, come out, and we actually attended one of their, town hall open houses, within which they thanked the town and all of our staff for the warm welcome that we extended their residents during the fires back this May. It was a wonderful thank you that we received there. We received a lovely meal, and they said such kind words and just wanted us to rearticulate to our community about how thankful they were that Slave Lake opened up our doors essentially with open arms and welcome them in. So that was a really great opportunity to go out there and meet some of our neighbors. And we attended their, like I said, their open house and council meeting, and that was great. It was really fascinating to see how another community operates and hear reports from their directors. So that was fantastic. Another quick thing, we do have an event this week from the Slave Lake and District Chamber of Commerce. We have Ryan Jesperson, who's a political podcaster based out of Edmonton. He will be coming up on Friday at the Legacy Center. It is free to attend. Doors are at 6, the show is at 7, and the cash bar will be available. Councilor Hughes,
Motion to adjourn.
all the question, those in favor? And that is carried.
Start running.